Do you want to be happy? How do you find true happiness? Where do you look to find true happiness? What is happiness and who gets to decide? In this video, I'm going to share with you two powerful, life-changing insights from C.S. Lewis on happiness. And then I'm going to share with you the secret of happiness, and I'm going to share with you why so many people don't find happiness. So be sure to stay to the end, because if you're watching this, then you want to be happy. I want to be happy. So what does that look like? Hey everyone, Jonathan Morrow here, where I give you tools and training to understand culture and live out a biblical worldview. If you're finding these videos helpful, please like and subscribe and share with a friend. That helps me spread the word, and I'd really appreciate it. So how do you be truly happy? Who is happy? How do we find the secret of happiness, and why do people look in so many wrong places when everybody's aiming at the same thing? Let's dive right in. How can I be happy? What is happiness? Who gets to decide? Everybody wants to be happy, but why do so few people actually find happiness? Well, that's what we're going to talk about in this video, because you're going to learn the secret to true happiness. So be sure to stay to the end, because this principle that we're going to talk about in this video can change the direction of your life. I don't think that's overstating it one bit, because everybody wants to be happy, but so few people actually find happiness. So let's dive right in. You know, when you ask anybody what the goal of life is, pretty much everybody's going to give you the same answer. I want to be happy. I want to be happy, right? What is happiness? Well, that's the goal that every generation, no matter the age, wants to find. They want to find happiness. That's how they're going to answer that survey question. The problem is no one defines it. Everybody's aiming at happiness. They all say they want happiness. But we have a whole generation that's the most miserable generation in history, more worried, more depressed, more fearful, more disillusioned than ever. So something is going wrong in this quest for happiness. And what are we going to do about it? You want to be happy. I want to be happy. What do we do to find true happiness? Because everybody's aiming at happiness at the end of the day. I don't think there's a more perceptive quote on the spirit of our age than Beyonce on the nature of happiness. Here's what she says. Happiness comes from you. No one else can make you happy. You make you happy. Notice what she's saying. Happiness comes from you. You are the origin. You are the source. No one else can make you happy. It's not found in anybody else. And only you can make you happy. Now, is that true? Because that is the playbook that everyone is using when it comes to pursuing happiness in today's culture. The problem is nobody's happy. This is leading to miserable lives, frustration, disillusionment, and ever-changing definitions of happiness because they think it depends on them. And we're going to come to that later on, but this is the spirit of the age because everybody thinks happiness depends on you. Happiness depends on me. And let me just shoot straight with you from the very beginning. If you are searching for happiness with you as the end goal, you will be miserable. There's got to be something more. So let's talk about what that is. Because we all have to ask that question, why am I not happy? I'm aiming at what everybody says to aim at. I'm following what I need to follow on Instagram, on Twitter, and everywhere else. Like I'm looking in all the places that pop culture, movies, songs are telling me to look for happiness. And yet, we're miserable. The American dream keeps coming true for so many people. We're healthier, we live longer, we have more stuff, more money, more comfort, more pleasure, more possessions. So we ask, why am I not happy? What is going on? Why is this failing us when we want it so badly? And here's the first truth that you need to understand. It all comes down to you and me. If we're aiming at happiness and you think you are going to provide you happiness, that's a dead end, no matter what you fill in the blank with. If you are only pursuing you, it will lead to a dead end and you will not be happy. Because you and I are not big enough to provide the happiness that we are after. Because here's the thing. Everyone wants to be happy, but almost no one can define what true happiness is. Is it a vague feeling? Is it just an emotion? Is it just something that's fleeting and always just out of reach at the tip of our fingertips? Like, is that what happiness is? So let me ask you a very honest question. Are you happy? However you define that word, whatever comes to your mind when I say the word happy, are you happy? Is that leading to true happiness? Is that something that is actually making you happy? Because Just put it this way, put it a fill in the blank. If I had such and such or so and so, I would be happy. This amount of money, this romantic relationship, this stuff, this car, these shoes, fill in the blank. And then by that standard, are you actually happy? That's worth asking the question and being honest with yourself. We look around and people aren't happy. And our own definition and standard of happiness is not fulfilling the promise that we think it should in our lives. So what I want to do is I want to share with you 2 life-changing observations, 2 truths that C.S. Lewis had on happiness that will change your life. Now, C.S. Lewis was the author of the Chronicles of Narnia, famous for his book Mere Christianity. He was a friend and came to become a follower of Jesus through J.R.R. Tolkien of Lord of the Rings, right? He wrote Lord of the Rings. He was influential in C.S. Lewis's life. And I want to share with you 2 things that C.S. Lewis discovered about happiness that will change your life if you will put them into practice. Okay, so let's dive in. What's the first one? Don't let your happiness depend on something you may lose. Don't let your happiness depend on something you may lose. The great truth, the first one from C.S. Lewis on this, is that if we aim at something that is temporary, circumstantial, fleeting, pleasure, stuff, and when we get it and we can lose it, ultimate happiness cannot be anchored or rooted in that. Why? Because it's going to change, it's going to go away, and then our happiness, or what we thought was happiness, the emotions attached to it or whatever else, goes with it, goes right down the drain. And so if we attach our vision of happiness, what we're aiming at, our desires, to something that we can lose, you and I will never be truly happy. Okay? And that's vital for you and I to understand that. So no matter how many people talk about it on Instagram or social media or influencers, you and I will not be happy if it's something that we may lose. Okay? That tells us and gives us a very important clue about the kind of person that we are and what we were made for. More on that in a minute. And that brings me to a very important question. Do you need God to be happy? Now, you might be saying to yourself, well, Jonathan, of course you'd say that. You're a Christian. Of course you'd say that you need God to be happy. But no, I want you to think about this a little deeper, because here's the thing. If God does not exist, if atheism is true, if naturalism is true, then there's no meaning, there's no purpose, there's no objective reality in the terms of God and purpose and moral values and duties, good, evil, flourishing. All of that goes out the window because God is the one who gives a human nature, which corresponds to that, which we'll talk about. Because here's the thing. If God does not exist, good and evil don't exist, objective moral values and purpose do not exist, and therefore there's no true happiness available to you because there's nothing to root it or ground it in. Okay? And so that's why worldviews matter, ideas matter. It's not just wishful thinking. You can't just create meaning and then go pursue it and pretend as if it's going to make you happy, because reality is involved. Which brings us to the key point that C.S. Lewis made in his book, Mere Christianity. Now, God designed the human machine to run on himself. He himself is the fuel our spirits were designed to burn, or the food our spirits were designed to feed on. There is no other. That is why it is just no good asking God to make us happy in our own way. God cannot give us a happiness and peace apart from himself, because it's not there. There is no such thing. So the second life-changing truth from C.S. Lewis is simply this. Happiness is not available in your own way. Why? Because God designed us to have a relationship with him, which is where happiness is found, right? That's the fuel that life runs on, because if we're relating to God, happiness comes from relating to God, because he cannot give us happiness apart from himself, a relationship with God. Because there has to be something bigger than yourself to anchor your desires to, that is eternal and unchanging and morally good and morally true and morally praiseworthy. And so the nature and character of God in a personal relationship is big enough for you and I to find true happiness in, if we were made for that purpose. And we've already talked about other videos where we give powerful evidence that God exists. So be sure to click on that link. So there's good rational evidence that God is real. But now the connection that we need to make is, well, happiness, if it exists at all, is related to the question of God. And so the question then becomes, is Christianity true? Can God make me happy apart from myself or not? And that's a big question that you have to consider. But how you answer that will determine whether or not you will be happy. Because if you do not pursue a relationship with God, and God really does exist, you will not be happy. You will always be left wanting more. You will always miss on what you are really aiming at, because those are mere shadows of the things you were created to enjoy and that I was created to enjoy, namely a relationship with God. And these are the truths that we also see revealed in Scripture and in the Bible. Psalm 128:1 says this: "How happy is everyone who fears the Lord, who walks in his ways." How happy is everyone who fears the Lord, who walks in his ways. Fearing the Lord is just the recognition that God is God and I am not. And therefore, I was created for a purpose. We come to God on his terms, not on our terms. How happy, how blessed is everyone who fears the Lord, who walks in his ways. Notice there's a correspondence or a matching up with reality of walking in God's ways in obedience, God's good design, character, and nature, and happiness. Because what does it mean to be human? We're made in God's image, and there's a connection between our nature and our Creator. And whenever those two things come apart, we are fundamentally unhappy. And if we pursue things for ourselves apart from God, we will be fundamentally unhappy. And that's the key insight that C.S. Lewis offers us, because he says, look, the first thing is, don't attach happiness to things that you can lose. And second, you were designed for a relationship with God, and he cannot give us happiness apart from himself, apart from a personal relationship with him. So that brings us to a really important question. If we want to be happy, do you know God? John 17:3 in the New Testament says this: "Now this is eternal life, that they know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ, whom you have sent." Relationship with God begins now and lasts forever. Cry out to God. Ask him, God, I want to be happy, but I want to know you. I want to know the purpose for which I was created, because that's where true happiness is found. Because here's the secret nobody knows. If you aim directly at happiness, you will miss it every single time. If you aim at a relationship with God and transcendent purpose and eternal truths and the things that are good and valuable, then happiness is a byproduct of that relationship with God. Why? Because we were designed for a relationship with him. The problem is you and I attach all of our desires to the fleeting things of this world and the things that our culture says will give us value, significance, enjoyment, pleasure, and well-being. And they're simply not. We're being lied to by our culture. So, do you know God? Do you have a personal relationship with God? Because if you want to be truly happy, and I do, and I think if you're honest, you do as well, do you have a relationship with God? Because only in that relationship will you find the truth about true happiness, where you can enjoy the life you were created to enjoy with God. And that begins now and it lasts forever. So I hope you'll consider putting your trust in Jesus Christ, the one true God. And in relationship with him, find the life and the happiness that you're looking for. And we'll see you in the next video.